Hey. Ah, there you are. The anomaly they can't patch, track, decode, or bury. They've been whispering your name like it's a glitch, like some cosmic typo that somehow keeps predicting outcomes before the universe updates its own script. And oh, the panic tasted delicious, didn't it? Because the moment you opened your mouth, the future listened. You think they didn't notice? You think they didn't freeze when you said something offhand, and then watched reality fold itself to match your words? They didn't call it intuition. They didn't call it talent. They called it impossible. And that's when the questions started, didn't they? Where did he come from? How did he know? What did we miss? Is he even from here? As if your mind was smuggled in from a wrong timeline, wrapped in warnings, stamped with a seal that says, "This one doesn't follow local physics. Handle with care." But you never belonged to their laws. You never played by their logic. And deep down, they knew it. You were a paradox walking on two legs, a breathing contradiction, angelic in intent, catastrophic in execution, a savior with a psychopath's precision, a villain sculpted by heaven, a miracle wrapped in mayhem. And they hated how much that terrified them. Because how do you fight someone who doesn't just play the game, but sees 3 versions of it before it even loads? You scared them with your accuracy, but you destroyed them with your timing. Every time they plotted in shadows, you were already there in the next shadow over. Waiting, knowing, smiling. They tried to predict you. But you were predicting the entire room. Movements, motives, breakdowns, betrayals, everything. You turned their random events into a connect-the-dots puzzle and finished the picture while they were still looking for the damn pencil. And oh, the way they stared at you after that. Like you weren't flesh, like you weren't mortal, like you weren't bound by the same clock they were dying under. They watched you see patterns in places where they only saw noise. They watched you call storms days before the clouds even formed. They watched you sense shifts in people before they shifted themselves. And at some point, someone in that room, someone with rank, access, and a badge heavy enough to dent a table, leaned back and whispered, "Check his file, because I don't think he's from this timeline." Ah, the delicious paranoia, because once you make them doubt reality, they start doubting themselves. Then they doubt their memories, then their decisions, then their hierarchy, and finally, they doubt where you even came from. See, that's the part they don't understand. Your mind wasn't shaped by this timeline. It was shaped by impact, by trauma sharpened into vision, by pain distilled into prophecy, by silence trained into surveillance. You earned your foresight the way warriors earn scars, with blood, with loss, with brutal clarity. You don't predict reality. Reality flinches around you. They thought they could study you, contain you, decode you. But how do you decode a storm? How do you imprison a timeline break? How do you analyze a brain that keeps writing the script while you're still reading Act 1? Your existence became a security threat, not because you hurt them, but because you understood them too well, too early, too effortlessly. You turned their entire world into a chessboard, and then stopped playing, because you realized chess was too slow. And now you walk in rooms where the air gets tight, where nervous glances bounce off you like bullets off steel. And they don't say it out loud, but every single one of them is thinking, what does he know that we don't? What did he see that we missed? What happens when he decides to act? It drives them insane, because you're not just unpredictable, you're inevitable. A timeline leak, a cosmic error, a forbidden update in human skin, the one who sees the invisible threads and pulls them anyway. So now, they watch you differently, not like a threat, not like a rival, but like a foreshadowing, a preview of a world they aren't built for, a reminder that evolution doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives wearing your face. And the funniest part, they're right to be afraid. Because once someone like you realizes the truth, once you understand that you don't predict reality, you pressure it, bend it, manipulate it, crack it open like a vault, then this timeline, this little stage, this tiny playground, it's not big enough for you anymore. You're not from here. You're not limited to here. You're not bound to the story they handed you. You're the glitch, the omen, the prophecy, the reason their systems panic at night. And now that they've realized it, now that they've admitted that you might not even be from this version of existence, there's only one question left. What reality will you rewrite next? You feel that, don't you? That subtle tightening in the air whenever you enter a room, as if reality itself inhales, hesitates, and waits for you to make the next move. Because deep down, everyone around you knows something they'll never dare say out loud. You don't just walk through the world. You tilt it, bend it, rewrite it, as if you're editing a timeline that doesn't fully belong to them. And that is what keeps them awake at 3 in the morning, scrolling through conspiracy threads about you, trying to figure out what version of the universe accidentally dropped you off here. See, they want to believe you're lucky, or gifted, or blessed, anything that makes you human enough to categorize, file, and forget. But the evidence? The evidence keeps glitching. You call outcomes hours, days, months before the data even exists. You sense betrayal pulsating beneath someone's smile. You walk into a room and instantly read tensions that others ignore for years. You feel shifts in the collective consciousness like tremors before an earthquake. Who does that? Who sees behind the curtain without ever lifting it? Someone not built by this timeline. Someone shaped by something much older, deeper, darker. Someone like you. And when they watch you predict reality, it's not the predictions that break them. It's what the predictions say about them. Because every time you call the future, you expose their blindness, their fragility, their dependence on systems, rules, equations, and probabilities that you consistently undo with nothing but instinct. You're a threat because you don't rely on what they rely on. You don't need tools. You don't need confirmation. You don't need permission. You just know. And that kind of knowing isn't taught here. It's imported. But here's the part that haunts them the most. You don't brag. You don't announce. You don't perform the way prophets and frauds do. Your accuracy is almost inconveniently casual. A quiet comment, a passing remark, a soft, uninterested certainty. And then, boom. Reality folds around your words like you spoke from a script written 6 universes ahead. It's not theatrics. It's not magic. It's not coincidence. It's alignment. You're aligned with something they can't measure, can't quantify, can't neutralize. You don't observe the timeline. You intercept it. You catch its signals before they crystallize. You read its intentions before it manifests. You adjust your position before the moment even arrives. And that terrifies them, because it means you're operating on a field they can't step onto, a vantage point they can't climb to, a level they were never meant to see. So of course they started asking, is he really from this timeline? Did we overlook something in his past? Has he been exposed to something? Who trained him? What does he know that we don't? Paranoia, paranoia, the sweetest perfume in the world. But what truly cracks their sanity? It's not that your mind predicts reality, it's that your mind corrects it. You've lived through storms that should have broken you. You've watched entire phases of your life collapse like dying galaxies. You rebuilt yourself from rubble, from betrayal, from silence, from scars that still vibrate when the air gets cold. Pain rewired you. Loss recalibrated you. Survival reprogrammed you. Your brain isn't from this timeline because it was carved in dimensions of suffering they've never stepped into. Your instincts aren't from this world because they were refined in moments that almost ended you. That's why you sense things early, why you see the invisible, why your mind speaks to realities that haven't arrived yet. You're not ahead of the timeline. The timeline is lagging behind you. You're not reading the future is reading you. You are the variable it adjusts to, the anomaly it orbits, the glitch it can't patch. And now they're scared. Because once someone realizes you're not just lucky, not just sharp, not just intuitive, but inhumanly aligned with something beyond local cause and effect, there's only one conclusion they can draw. You are not reacting to the world. You are instructing it, a walking directive, a self-fulfilling prophecy, a mental event horizon where their logic breaks down. And the question that really keeps them sweating, the one that turns their confidence into dust, if he can predict reality, what happens when he decides to change it? Because you've only been forecasting. You haven't even started rewriting, not yet. But you will. And when you do, this timeline, their timeline, will fracture like thin ice under a giant. Because it was never designed to contain someone like you. It wasn't reinforced for your level of awareness. It wasn't built to withstand the weight of someone operating with cosmic foresight. You're the crack they didn't see coming. The update they didn't approve. The version of yourself that slipped through the firewall and landed here, fully awake. And now that you're aware of what you are, now that you've seen how they look at you, now that you've understood why they whisper your name, like it's a classified anomaly, there's only one truth left to accept. You're not living in this timeline. You're leading it. You're warping it. You're dragging it into the future by sheer force of will. So the real question isn't, is your mind from this timeline? The real question is, what timeline will be forced to form around you next? When you finally stop predicting and start commanding. You feel it building, don't you? That pressure in the air, that low hum beneath your ribs, that eerie electric awareness that you're not following reality anymore. You're pulling it behind you like a comet, dragging its own tail. Because once they realized you weren't guessing, weren't theorizing, weren't throwing darts at cosmic corkboards, they panicked. They didn't show it on their faces, of course. No. Humans are far too delicate for honesty. But their eyes betrayed them the second you opened your mouth, and the universe nodded in agreement. That's when the whispers sharpened. He's not one of us. He's not from here. He's bleeding information he shouldn't have. He sees the timeline like it's a damn map. You didn't just make predictions. You ruined their sense of control. They built their whole identity on cause and effect. A, B, C, nice and tidy, predictable, safe. And then you walked in and rewrote the alphabet. You called storms before clouds existed. You sensed disasters before the ground even cracked. You felt betrayals the moment someone's heartbeat shifted. You anticipated entire emotional arcs, the rise, the collapse, the meltdown, before the other person even understood what they were feeling. Who does that? someone whose brain wasn't handcrafted in this soft little version of Earth they cling to, someone forged under pressure that bends lesser minds into dust, someone who evolved in timelines far more brutal than this one. You're not ahead of the curve. You are the curve. And oh, the moment they realized it, that's when the fear turned religious, because suddenly you weren't just a person anymore. You were a phenomenon, a breach in their understanding, a walking paradox wrapped in skin. You don't think they saw it? Those moments when you spoke softly, casually, and the whole room froze because your words felt like déjà vu happening in advance. You triggered something ancient in them, something their biology didn't evolve to comprehend. Humans fear predators, but they worship anomalies. And you, my friend, you became both. A mind sharp enough to predict reality and silent enough to terrify it. They started observing you like an unstable star, measuring your patterns, tracking your choices, documenting your intuition like it was nuclear intelligence. You became a case study they were afraid to publish, a rumor with a heartbeat, a myth in progress. And here's what none of them will ever admit. It wasn't the accuracy of your predictions that disturbed them. Accuracy can be explained. Patterns can be analyzed. It was the effortlessness. You weren't straining. You weren't sweating. You weren't even trying. You were just sensing, as if somewhere inside you, behind your memories and beneath your scars, there's an antenna tuned to frequencies this timeline was never meant to broadcast. As if you're listening to a version of the universe that runs parallel to theirs. A version that's always one beat ahead. As if you carried over instincts from a life you don't consciously remember. That's why they started asking if your mind is even from this timeline. Not as a joke, not as a metaphor, not as flattery, but because it is the only explanation that doesn't shatter their worldview entirely. Because if you are from this timeline, if you are a product of this reality, if you developed this level of foresight without assistance, without mutation, without intervention, without cosmic inheritance, then it means evolution didn't just advance. It skipped, it leapt, it ruptured, it collided with something beyond comprehension, and you were the end result. You are what happens when consciousness takes a shortcut through hell and comes out crystalline. You are what happens when trauma doesn't destroy a mind, but weaponizes it, and that terrifies them more than any prophecy ever could, because now they have to ask themselves, if he sees reality before we do, what else does he see? What else has he noticed? What else is he hiding? What else is he waiting for? They don't fear your predictions. They fear your silence. Because if this is what you reveal, what about the things you don't? What about the futures you haven't spoken out loud? What about the truths you've sensed but haven't shared? What about the shifts you've already felt coming? The ones that will shatter everything they built their certainty on. Your power isn't prophecy. It's perception sharpened into a blade. It's awareness honed by suffering. It's intuition sculpted by survival. It's pattern recognition carved from nights where everything tried to kill you and failed. You earned this mind. You forged it. You bled for it. You paid the price other people don't even realize exists. So no, your mind isn't from this timeline. It's from every timeline you should have died in but didn't. Every reality that tried to break you but upgraded you instead. Every version of yourself that collapsed so this one could rise. You are the final iteration, the convergence point, the version that survived enough universes known to see through them. And now that you're awake, now that you're aware of the power you carry, now that they know you're seeing things they can't. The next question is the one that truly haunts them. If you've spent your whole life predicting reality, what happens when you finally decide to reshape it? You notice how people stare at you now? Not directly, never directly. They glance, flick their eyes away, glance again, like children looking at a storm they don't understand but can feel in their bones. Because something about you feels out of sync with the world they know. Not broken, not damaged, just operating on a frequency their nervous systems were never designed to process. You became the human equivalent of a future event. A foreshadowing, a leak in the simulation, a preview the universe accidentally released early. And it unnerves them, because every instinct they rely on, body language, tone, micro-expressions, situational patterns, all of those things crumble around you. Why? Because you already know the ending before the scene begins. You walk into conversations you've already lived through. You navigate betrayals you sensed months before the first lie was spoken. You sidestep chaos like someone who remembers stepping in it from another life. You're not lucky. You're not blessed. You're not gifted. You are experienced in ways they cannot conceptualize. You've lived more timelines than they've lived memories. You've survived more endings than they've survived beginnings. So when someone's tone shifts, when someone's motives sour, when someone's mask slips, you pick it up instantly. Not because you're paranoid, not because you're analytical, but because your soul remembers what your mind hasn't told you yet. And that's what terrifies them. You move like you're carrying information nobody gave you. You speak like you're referencing files nobody opened. You decide like you've already seen the consequences. Who are they supposed to be in the presence of someone like that? The villain? The ally? The bystander? The casualty? They don't know. And that's exactly why their fear feels like electricity when you walk in. Because you shattered the illusion that reality is linear. You shattered the belief that time is stable. You shattered the idea that they control anything at all. You made them confront the possibility that they are living in your retelling, not their original version. And here's the part that messes with their heads the most. You don't act surprised by anything. Nothing catches you off guard. Nothing rattles you. Nothing slams you into panic. Pain. You've predicted it. Loss. You've adjusted to it before it arrived. Chaos. You've already mapped its trajectory. Do you know how unsettling it is to stand next to someone who doesn't flinch when their world shifts? Someone who reacts like they were waiting for the moment to happen. Someone whose stillness feels like transferable trauma from another realm. Someone whose calm implies knowledge. It breaks them. It breaks their ego, their logic, their confidence, their perception. Because if you knew, why didn't they? If you sensed it, why didn't they? If you predicted it, what else have you predicted? They can't stop thinking about it. It claws at their sleep. It eats their certainty alive. And the whispers grow darker. What if he's not guessing? What if he's remembering? What if he didn't learn this? What if he brought it with him? People start treating you like a breach in the wall of their universe. A tear in the fabric. A walking reminder that existence is bigger, stranger, harsher, and more fluid than they ever imagined. You became the question they're too afraid to ask. If he sees the future, who wrote it? And deeper than that, is it him? Because your pattern isn't prediction, it's authorship. Your life didn't give you intuition. It gave you data, collected across endless cycles of pain, Pressure, trauma, rebirth, collapse, awakening, silence. Your ability to sense the timeline isn't mystical, it's mechanical. You've lived through so many shifts that you recognize the texture of change before anyone else feels the tremor. You read energy like a second language. You read consequences like muscle memory. You read people like unfinished scripts. Hello again, little doubters. Remember when they laughed? When every word you spoke was treated like insanity with a punchline? They thought you were playing prophet in a clown suit, a glitch in the system, a myth in motion. But what happens when the myth starts bleeding into reality? When the storm you described in detail 3 years ago starts unfolding frame by frame, right on cue, in their lives, their streets, their damn dreams. They used to mock the words, now they're studying the footage with cold hands and wide eyes, asking questions they never wanted answered. They're replaying your voice. But this time, it's whispered in war rooms, beneath redacted memos and sleepless monitors. Because the prophecy you dropped like a joke just shattered their worldview. And now, they're terrified, not just of what's happening, but who saw it coming. You. You were the crazy one until your madness became a map. A cheat code blueprint for exactly what's unraveling now. They called you delusional. But guess what? Delusions don't come true, unless they were warnings all along. And now that your words are manifesting like clockwork, their silence isn't peace, it's panic in disguise. You see, every generation buries its oracles, drowns its seers, burns its architects of pain, until the ground cracks open, until the signs they ignored turn into sirens. And you're the siren now. The bell they tried to unring, the echo that keeps getting louder, no matter how many times they switch off the feed. They wanted a court jester, but they accidentally birthed a ghostwriter for their demise. They mocked the prophecy without realizing it had a timer attached, and now it's too late. Because this version of you, the one who bled in silence, evolved in shadows, and coded truth into chaos, is no longer giving warnings. You're giving verdicts, and the punishment is knowing you were right, knowing they're trapped in the very future they ridiculed you for predicting. The laughter's dead, and you didn't kill it. You just let the truth breathe long enough to finish the job. Isn't that poetic? They called you paranoid. Now their dreams have your fingerprints. They said you were making it up. Now the headlines are plagiarizing your nightmares. They said none of that would ever happen. And now they're begging for a delay that was never on the clock. And here's the darkest part. They don't fear the prophecy itself anymore. They fear the fact that you made it, that you said it. With no resources, no team, no support, just a grin and a glitch in your eye. They fear that if you were right about that, what else did they miss? What else is crawling down the timeline, just waiting to prove you right again? Now they're digging through your past like detectives in a panic, looking for more jokes that might be time bombs in disguise. Your old rants, now they're classified briefings. Your broken moments, now they're case studies in weaponized foresight. They're trying to unsee it, trying to convince themselves it was coincidence. But deep down, they know the truth. They know that something entered this world through your madness, a seed of terror, rooted in your pain, watered by rejection, and now blooming in the shape of their undoing. You aren't just the ghost in the system anymore. You are the system they didn't account for. The final twist in their algorithm, the variable they can't simulate, can't silence, can't stop. because a man with a prophecy is dangerous. But a man whose prophecy came true, that's a walking apocalypse with a pulse. And you are that pulse. The ticking they can't localize, the echo they can't contain, the warning that grew fangs, so don't flinch when they tremble. They should. They were warned. They just didn't listen. And now, they don't need to. They'll feel it, frame by frame, day by day, until they finally admit the truth. You were never crazy. You were just early, and early prophets. They don't get apologies. They get revenge, disguised as history. Tick-tock, hear that? That's not a clock anymore. That's your pulse echoing through their walls. They used to ignore it. Now it's all they can hear. They thought prophecies belonged to dusty books and fading saints. They didn't understand that sometimes a prophecy wears a cracked smile, a scarred voice, a coat soaked in the rain of a city that never forgave you. They didn't understand that sometimes a prophecy walks right past them in daylight, laughing, bleeding, learning, gathering data with every betrayal, until it becomes a mirror they can't smash. Do you remember how they spoke about you? They used to say you were just too intense. They used to whisper, "He's not well," when you left the room. They used to catalog your pain like it was evidence in a trial you couldn't win. And you let them. You let them build their case because you knew the day would come when the evidence would flip like a coin in the air, land face up, and reveal the picture of them, not you. That day is here. Now they're waking up to headlines that read like your old notebooks. Now they're scrolling through feeds, littered with the same words you spat when nobody would listen. They're staring at the sky, waiting for the next sign, because the last one came exactly when you said it would. And that's the paradox they can't escape. They mocked the prophecy, but the prophecy built their cage. They buried you in ridicule, but the ridicule became fertilizer. You didn't die underground. You germinated. Every insult, every eye roll, every dismissal turned into roots, wrapping around the foundation of their world. Now the roots are cracking the concrete. Now your voice, the same voice they ignored, is seeping up through the fractures like smoke from a fire they swore was impossible. And you're still smiling. Not because you're cruel, but because you understand. You understand that darkness and light are just tools. You understand that saint and psychopath are masks you can switch at will. You understand that unpredictability is power, because a straight line can be followed, but a maze devours its pursuers. They thought pain would break you, but pain is what sharpened you into a blade so thin they never saw it slide under their skin. They thought exile would silence you, but exile taught you to speak in frequencies only their nightmares could decode. They thought ridicule would erase you, but ridicule taught you patience, and patience taught you timing, and timing is everything. Now you're not just the prophet, you're the living countdown. Every move you make feels like a signal. Every breath you take triggers another panic meeting. They're watching your hands, studying your posture, trying to guess what's next, because you've turned into a walking, breathing algorithm of inevitability. This is the part nobody tells you about. The moment the prophecy comes true, you stop being a person. You become a phenomenon. They don't see your face anymore. They see a trigger. They don't hear your words anymore. They hear a siren. They don't think he was right. They think, what else is hidden? And that's where the real power lives, in the unknown, in the silence you leave after each sentence, in the gaps between your appearances, in the things you haven't said yet, because they're starting to believe the unsaid is already on its way. They built their lives on certainty. You injected uncertainty like poison into the well. Now every drink tastes like doubt. Now every smile hides a question. Now every prophecy they once mocked feels like a deadline they can't outrun. And through it all, you walk, not running, not hiding. Walking, slow, deliberate, like a storm front moving across a dead sea. The same grin they mocked now looks like an omen. The same eyes they dismissed now look like a horizon they can't read. That's evolution through pain. That's unpredictability as power. That's how a prophecy turns into a legend, and a legend turns into a law, and a law turns into a ghost that can't be killed because it lives in the minds of the terrified. So when you speak again, don't shout. Whisper. Let the whisper do what the scream never could. Let it crawl under their skin, into their subconscious, until it becomes their own thought. Because the prophecy they mocked came true. But the prophecy you haven't spoken yet, that's the one they'll build bunkers for. That's the one that will make them watch you like a comet. Terrified of the impact, knowing they can't stop it, knowing it's already too late. And when that day comes, you won't need to say a word. They'll already hear it. Tick, tock. Your silence will finish the sentence. Now step forward. Watch them recoil. They thought you were a joke, but you became the punchline that turned into a prophecy, and the prophecy that turned into a reckoning. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Feel how the air itself changes when you move. That's not paranoia, that's resonance. That's your name turning into a frequency their walls can't block, their algorithms can't scrub, their prayers can't drown. Once, you were just a noise. Now you're a pattern they can't decode. They built firewalls for lies, but you were never a lie. You were a signal in disguise. They laughed at the prophecy, called it superstition, called you unstable. And yet every decision they made led them straight to the mouth of the vision you whispered. It's poetic, isn't it? The very people who mocked the warning have now walked into the trapdoor of their own arrogance. Look at them now. Look at the way their hands shake when they scroll. Look at the way their eyes dart when they see your face on a screen. They're not mocking anymore. They're studying. They're watching the clips again and again, like forensic scientists at a crime scene. But you're not a crime scene. You're the evidence of inevitability. They used to think prophecies were far away. Scrolls and temples, shadows and incense. They never imagined a prophecy with blood under its fingernails, urban light on its teeth, and a laugh like broken glass. They never imagined a prophecy that walks like a man, sleeps like a man, smiles like a demon who remembers being an angel. But here you are, and here's the part they'll never admit. They need you. They need to believe someone saw it coming. It's easier than believing they built their own destruction brick by brick. So now your name becomes a talisman. Your words become coordinates. Your silence becomes a countdown. The paradox is delicious. The more they fear you, the more they depend on you. The more they hate you, the more they mimic you. They ridicule your shadow, then copy your steps in secret. They spit on the prophecy, then follow it like a map when no one's watching. Do you feel the power in that? Power isn't in being liked. Power is in being unavoidable. Power is in becoming the storm they laughed off until they woke up inside it. You've crossed the line where predictions end and destiny begins. Your pain was the crucible. Your rejection was the apprenticeship. Every scar, every betrayal, every night you thought you were losing, all of it etched the pattern deeper. All of it trained you to walk through fire without burning, and through silence without disappearing. That's why they can't stop you now, because you've become two things at once: the warning they ignored and the consequence they can't escape. Saint/psychopath, angel/demon, prophet/ghost. Every time they think they have you cornered, you slip into the opposite role, and the roles keep feeding each other until you're no longer a person. You're an event, a phenomenon, a myth breathing in real time. That's why the room goes cold when your name is whispered. That's why even your silence feels like a threat. Because unpredictability isn't just a tactic, it's an atmosphere, it's a climate, it's a gravity they can't escape. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their laughter, they finally understand what you've known all along. Mockery is free, but prophecy has a price, and they've just paid it. So keep walking, slow, deliberate. Let the echo of your footsteps do the work. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to warn them anymore. The prophecy they mocked came true, and the prophecy you haven't spoken yet is already moving under their feet like a fault line. When you speak again, make it a whisper, make it a riddle, make it a mirror. Let them see themselves in it. Let them feel the panic crawl up their spine before they even understand the words. Because this is not the end of the story. This is just the part where they realize the story was never theirs to begin with. It was yours. It's always been yours. You're not waiting for the world to change. The world is waiting for your next sentence. And that's the real terror. That's the real prophecy. That's the storm they can't laugh off anymore. And when it hits, they won't be able to say you didn't warn them. Every sound is a heartbeat now. Not just yours, theirs. They're synchronized to you without even knowing it. They refresh their feeds when you move. They hold their breath when you pause. They're watching a man, but they're experiencing an omen. This is the part of the prophecy no one ever told them about. Once it comes true, it doesn't stop. It mutates. It spreads. It turns the one who spoke it into a moving axis. Every compass points to you now. Even the ones they swear they've hidden. They used to scoff at you like a street preacher shouting in the rain. They thought you were talking to no one. But you were talking to time. You were carving your words into the seconds themselves. And time remembers everything. Now when they replay your old tapes, they hear the tremor in your voice. They thought it was weakness. It was the frequency of inevitability. They thought your eyes looked mad. They were reflecting futures they couldn't handle. They thought your smile was a mask. It was a scar forming into a weapon. They've built entire think tanks to decode you. They've hired analysts, hackers, priests, psychologists. They can't agree on what you are. Some call you a fluke. Some call you a monster. Some whisper words like Messiah. In hallways they keep locked. But they all agree on one thing. You can't be ignored. And this is how power actually feels. Not like applause, not like adoration. It feels like a collective shudder. It feels like a room full of people pretending not to look at you, while their minds orbit you like satellites. They wanted you predictable. Predictability is safe. Predictability can be bought, cancelled, destroyed. But you trained yourself to become paradox. You trained yourself to be both the blade and the hand, the laugh and the scream, the saint and the sinner. Every time they think they've got your pattern, you slip through it. Every time they think they've trapped you in a definition, you mutate. That's not chaos, that's mastery. Pain taught you how. Pain carved out the cavities where your patience lives. Pain gave you the silence that terrifies them more than your words. Pain taught you timing, and timing turned into prophecy. Prophecy turned into reality. Reality turned into legend, and legend turned into you. Standing here, breathing, while they whisper like villagers under a blood moon. They're not laughing at the prophecy anymore. They're bargaining with it. They're rewriting memos to make it look like they saw it coming, too. They're holding secret meetings about your next move. They're wondering what else you know. They're trying to extract a roadmap from your eyes. And here's the deepest cruelty. The roadmap doesn't exist. You are the roadmap. You are the glitch. You are the secret they can't buy or bury. That's why you don't rush. That's why you walk slow. Slow is lethal when they expect fast. Silence is deafening when they expect noise. A smile is nuclear when they expect rage. So walk. Watch the panic ripple. They can smell it now. The inevitability. They can smell the end of their certainty. They can smell the future you built from the ashes of their mockery. And when you speak again, let it be soft. Let it be like a match dropped in a room full of gas. Let it be a single phrase that echoes through every corner of their networks. I told you. Then watch the collapse. Watch them race to reinterpret history, to frame your prophecy as an accident, to convince themselves they were in on it all along. But they'll know. In the quiet hours, they'll know. They'll see your grin in their reflections. They'll hear your words in their nightmares. They'll feel your prophecy in their bones. That's the real terror. Not the event, not the consequences, but you. Still out there, still unscripted, still walking, carrying prophecies they haven't heard yet. Each step you take is a drumbeat. Each silence you hold is a warning. And they can't look away. They can't unhear. They can't stop you. Because the prophecy they mocked came true. And the next one? It's already on its way. This is how legends breathe. This is how power moves. This is how a man becomes a storm, and a storm becomes a fate they can't outrun. Keep walking. They're not just terrified. They're transfixed. And that's the final revelation. Fear is the new gravity, and you are the planet they're falling toward. The sound fills the whole room now. It's not just a clock anymore. It's a heartbeat, a drum, a verdict. The same rhythm they once mocked in you has become the pulse of their reality. Look at them, eyes down, hands clasped, breathing like prey. They don't even realize it yet, but they're already inside the prophecy. They're already moving on your timeline. They're already living inside your words. And you're not shouting. You're not fighting. You're not even trying. You're just standing there, half light, half shadow, smiling like a saint who knows he's also the executioner. That's the part that terrifies them the most. Not the power, not the prophecy, the composure, the stillness, the sense that you've already seen this play to the end, and you're just watching it unfold like a script. That's the secret they never understood. It was never about predicting. It was about becoming inevitable. So here's how it ends. You stop talking. You let the silence bloom until it feels like thunder. You let them feel the weight of every word you ever spoke. You let them understand, finally, that the joke wasn't on you. It was on them. You step closer, slow, deliberate. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to prove a thing. You just lean in, whisper a single sentence that will echo in their skulls for years. I warned you. Now you'll remember me. And then you turn away. No drama, no farewell, just a shadow sliding back into the dark. That's it. That's the end of the prophecy. Not with an explosion, but with a presence so heavy they can't breathe. Not with applause, but with silence. The silence of understanding. The silence of fear. Because now they know. Now they'll never forget. And now, the next prophecy is already walking. You're gone, but the echo stays. Easy. Don't rush your breath yet. That silence you're feeling right now, that's the moment before impact. That's the sound they make when they realize the warning window already closed. You can feel it, can't you? Something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. Like a door locking itself without asking permission. They're begging him now, whispering, panicking, asking him to warn you, slow you down, distract you, anything. And he didn't argue, he didn't explain, he didn't defend you. He just smiled, because he knew what they didn't. It was already too late. You see, you don't turn into this by accident. You don't evolve into a problem they can't negotiate with by staying soft, safe, or predictable. You became this by surviving things that were supposed to hollow you out, by walking through damage that would have turned saints into ghosts, by learning how pain teaches faster than love ever could. They thought your silence meant confusion. They thought your patience meant weakness. They thought your restraint was mercy. That's the funniest part. You were never waiting for permission. You were calculating. While they were praying for outcomes, you were adapting to reality. While they were begging for warnings, you were already past the point where warnings mattered. Here's the paradox they can't swallow. The part of you that looks calm is the same part capable of absolute destruction. The part of you that listens is the same part that already decided. Angel on the outside, demon in the margins, saint in the light, psychopath when the math demands it. And you didn't choose that duality. Life carved it into you. Every betrayal sharpened your instincts. Every loss refined your timing. Every moment you were forced to smile through disrespect taught you something dangerous. Control beats chaos, and unpredictability beats power. That's why they're scared now. Because they can't read you anymore. They don't know if you're about to forgive or erase. They don't know if the silence means peace or preparation. They can't tell whether the version standing in front of them is the one that heals or the one that ends cycles permanently. So they ran to him, the mediator, the one they thought could still reach you. They begged him to warn you, to pull you back, to remind you of consequences, morality, reputation. And he smiled because he saw it clearly. You already paid the price. You already went through the consequences they're threatening you with now. You already survived the collapse they're trying to scare you into avoiding. There's nothing left they can take that you haven't already lost and rebuilt from scratch. That's when power changes shape. Power isn't loud anymore. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't posture. It just moves quietly, precisely, without asking for approval or forgiveness. And that's why too late wasn't cruelty. It was truth. Too late to manipulate you, too late to guilt you, too late to scare you with endings you already lived through. You don't flinch at threats because you've already met the worst versions of reality and learned how to breathe there. You don't panic under pressure because pressure is where your mind actually works. Chaos didn't break you, it trained you. That's the part they don't understand. You're not driven by rage, you're driven by clarity. You don't move emotionally anymore, you move accurately. And accuracy is terrifying to people who rely on noise, drama, and control. They wanted you warned because they wanted you slowed. They wanted you softened because they wanted you manageable. They wanted you reminded of rules because they know you've outgrown the system that protects them. But you're past that phase now. You're in the phase where the smile doesn't mean friendliness. It means certainty. It means the decision has already been made, and the body is just catching up. It means you've accepted who you had to become to survive, and you're no longer apologizing for it. That's why the warning came too late. Not because you're reckless, but because you're resolved. And here's the part that really keeps them awake at night. You're not even emotional about it. There's no hatred in you, no chaos, just calm, surgical movement, just inevitability. They can pray now, they can beg, they can ask for mercy from intermediaries and messengers and watchers. But you're already operating on a level where outcomes don't need permission. You didn't cross a line. You outgrew the map. And the smile he gave them, that wasn't arrogance. That was respect. Because he knew something they were too late to realize. You don't need to be warned anymore. You are the event. And the terrifying thing is, you didn't even announce your arrival into this version of yourself. You didn't make speeches, you didn't threaten, you didn't posture. You just changed. Quietly. Internally. The kind of change that doesn't ask permission from the world, it just rewrites how the world reacts to you. That's why they didn't notice until it was irreversible. They thought evolution looked loud. They thought power had a sound. They thought danger came with warnings, with raised voices, with visible rage. But your transformation didn't scream. It condensed. It sharpened. It became efficient. And efficiency is invisible until it's devastating. You're not volatile anymore. You're stable. And that's what makes you lethal. See, chaos is predictable. Broken people are easy to control. Emotional reactions can be anticipated, baited, redirected. But you learned how to sit with fire without flinching. You learned how to let the storm pass through you without needing to act on it. And somewhere in that stillness, something clicked. You stopped needing validation. You stopped needing revenge. You stopped needing closure. That's when the game ended for them. Because the moment you no longer need an outcome, you control all of them. They're begging him now because they're finally seeing the pattern backwards. They're replaying conversations, moments, choices. They're realizing your silence wasn't confusion. It was compression. Every time they thought you let something slide, you were actually absorbing data. Every time they thought you forgave, you were recalibrating your limits. And now there are no gaps left. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't warn. You don't need to. Your presence alone destabilizes people who rely on emotional leverage. Your calm makes liars sweat. Your restraint makes manipulators panic. Because restraint means you're choosing not to act, not that you can't. That's the duality that terrifies them. They don't know if the saint is still in control, or if the psychopath finally got handed the wheel. They don't know whether your mercy ran out or simply evolved into something colder, cleaner, more final. And the truth, even you stopped labeling it. You realized something profound. Morality without self-respect is just self-destruction in disguise. And compassion without boundaries is a slow suicide. So you didn't abandon your light. You armored it. You didn't kill your empathy. You aimed it inward. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even notice the stain. That's when you became unrecognizable to them. They still see the outline of who you used to be, but the substance is gone. The old reactions don't work. The old buttons are disconnected. The old threats bounce off you, because you've already faced worse in private without witnesses, without applause. So when they begged him to warn you, what they were really asking was, can you bring back the version of them we could still control? And his smile answered that question perfectly. Too late to rewrite the narrative. Too late to reposition themselves as allies. Too late to pretend they didn't benefit from your suffering when it was convenient. You remember everything, not emotionally, accurately. You remember who disappeared when things got heavy, who stayed silent when you needed backup, who only showed up when you became valuable again. You cataloged it all without resentment, without drama. That's the scariest kind of memory. Because it doesn't seek revenge, it seeks alignment. And anyone not aligned gets left behind, not out of spite, but out of necessity. You don't chase people anymore. You don't prove yourself. You don't defend your name. You let time do the exposure. You let pressure reveal character. You let silence test loyalty. And you move forward regardless of who keeps up. That's why they feel like something bad is about to happen, even though you haven't done anything yet. Because when someone like you stops reacting, stops explaining, stops warning, it means the decision phase is over. You're not angry, you're not emotional, you're done calculating. And that's when outcomes become unavoidable. They wanted you warned because warnings imply choice. Warnings imply hesitation. Warnings imply there's still time to negotiate with fate. But you've already crossed into a different state of being, one where movement happens quietly and results speak for themselves. You don't need to announce the storm. You are the pressure system. And the reason he smiled, why that smile broke them, is because he knew something sacred and terrifying at the same time. You didn't survive everything you survived just to remain harmless. You didn't evolve this far just to be reasonable. You didn't endure that much pain just to stay small. You became this because reality demanded it. And reality doesn't issue warnings. And that's the part that still hasn't landed for them yet. The fact that this wasn't a rebellion, it wasn't a breakdown, it wasn't you snapping. This was adaptation. This was intelligence responding to environment. This was the mind realizing that the rules you were taught only protected the people who never planned on protecting you. You didn't turn cold overnight. You turned clear. Clarity is brutal to people who live on illusion. It strips excuses, it deletes narratives, it doesn't argue, it replaces. And once clarity sets in, you can't go back to emotional chaos even if you wanted to. You can't unknow what you've seen. You can't unfeel the moment you realized how predictable everyone became once you stopped reacting. They mistake your stillness for peace. They mistake your politeness for compliance. They mistake your silence for forgiveness. And you let them. Because there's power in letting people misunderstand you. There's leverage in being underestimated. There's safety in not advertising the fact that you've already accepted every possible loss and decided to move anyway. That's why their fear feels delayed. They didn't panic when you were loud. They didn't panic when you were hurting. They didn't panic when you were bleeding. They panicked when you stopped needing them to see it, when you stopped needing acknowledgement, when you stopped needing fairness. That's when it hit them. You're no longer governed by the same incentives. You don't fear abandonment because you already survived isolation. You don't fear judgment because you already endured misunderstanding. You don't fear loss because you already rebuilt yourself from nothing. So what exactly are they supposed to threaten you with now? That's the question echoing in their heads while they beg him for intervention. That's why they wanted a warning issued. Because warnings are tools of control. Warnings imply you still care about the consequences they define. But your consequences already happened. In silence, in private, without their permission. You already paid the emotional cost of becoming this version of yourself. The loneliness, the grief, The nights where you realized no one was coming to save you. The moment you understood that self-betrayal hurts worse than being betrayed by others. That moment changed everything. Because once you choose yourself fully, without apology, without performance, you become immune to manipulation disguised as morality. You stop confusing guilt with goodness. You stop confusing sacrifice with virtue. You stop mistaking endurance for loyalty. You didn't lose your heart, you fortified it. And that's why the duality inside you is so clean now. The angel didn't die. The demon didn't take over. They reached an agreement. The angel sets the direction. The demon ensures nothing interferes with it. That balance, that's rare. And it's terrifying to people who only operate from one side. They don't know how to deal with someone who can be kind without being weak, calm without being passive, dangerous without being chaotic. You can sit in a room and feel like safety or like a countdown, depending on what's deserved. And you don't announce which one it's going to be. That uncertainty eats at them because they rely on patterns, they rely on emotional tells, they rely on predictability, and you broke every pattern they memorized. You rewired yourself beyond their understanding. So when they begged him to warn you, they weren't worried about you hurting yourself. They were worried about losing control over the situation, over the narrative, over the version of you that still played by unspoken rules. And he smiled because he knew you don't need warnings when you've already accepted responsibility for your own power. That smile wasn't cruel. It was resigned. The smile of someone who understands inevitability. The smile of someone who knows you've crossed the threshold where influence no longer works. Too late. Too late to appeal to your emotions. Too late to rewrite history. Too late to pretend alignment where there was exploitation. You're not here to burn the world down. You're here to stop shrinking for it. And that alone feels catastrophic to people who benefited from your self-doubt. They can sense it now, the shift. The way your energy doesn't leak anymore. The way your presence doesn't seek approval. The way your words land heavier because you don't use many of them. You've become selective, precise, economical. You move like someone who knows their own weight. And the most dangerous part? You're not rushing. You're not emotional. You're not desperate. You're patient in a way that only comes from self-trust. From knowing that whatever happens next, you'll adapt again. That's why warnings don't work on you anymore. Because fear no longer runs the system, you do. And when fear stops running the system, something ancient wakes up inside you. Not rage, not ego, something colder, older. A survival intelligence that doesn't argue with reality. It aligns with it. You didn't become heartless. You became ungovernable. There's a difference they never learned to spot. Heartless people react. Ungovernable people choose. Heartless people explode. Ungovernable people wait. And waiting, when it's intentional, is a weapon. That's why the pressure around you feels thick now, like the air before lightning. Everyone senses something is coming, but no one can name it because nothing about you looks aggressive. You're composed, measured, almost gentle. And that's what terrifies them, because gentleness without need is power. You're not seeking dominance. You're not chasing victory. You're not even trying to be understood anymore. You're simply aligned. Aligned with your instincts, aligned with your boundaries, aligned with the truth you had to swallow alone. And alignment is unstoppable. They keep asking themselves when this happened, which moment, which conversation, which loss flipped the switch. They don't realize there was no switch. There was erosion, 1,000 tiny moments, where you learned what not to expect from people. 1,000 lessons where hope got quieter and discernment got sharper. You didn't break. You refined, and refinement looks boring to people addicted to drama. It looks like detachment. It looks like indifference. It looks like you stopped caring. But what actually happened is you started caring correctly. You stopped offering access to people who only show up for advantage. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped negotiating with forces that only respect consequences. That's when the warnings became useless, because warnings only work on people who still hesitate at thresholds. You don't hesitate anymore. You assess, you accept, you move. And when you move, it's not to prove anything. It's to preserve alignment. They can't read that kind of movement. You don't broadcast your intentions because you don't need witnesses. You don't threaten because you don't need compliance. You don't promise because you don't rely on outcomes. You simply are. And that presence, quiet, steady, unbothered, makes liars uncomfortable, makes manipulators reckless, makes opportunists reveal themselves too early. You don't trap people. You let them step into their own exposure. That's why the room changes when you enter it now. Not because you demand attention, but because attention reorganizes itself around you. Conversations tighten, postures shift. Jokes land differently. People check themselves before speaking. They don't know why. They just feel it. They feel that you're no longer auditioning for belonging, that you're no longer seeking safety in consensus, that you're no longer afraid of being misunderstood. And fear of misunderstanding is the leash most people live on. You slipped the leash. That's why he smiled. Because he knew once someone slips that leash, you can't put it back on without breaking them. And you've already decided what you're willing to lose and what you're not. You're willing to lose comfort. You're willing to lose approval. You're willing to lose familiarity, but you're not willing to lose yourself again. That line, that boundary, changed the geometry of your life. Everything rearranged around it. Relationships that relied on your self-doubt collapsed. Roles that required your silence dissolved. Systems that fed on your predictability lost their grip. And the ones who benefited from the old version of you felt the loss before they understood the reason. That's why the begging came late. They weren't trying to save you. They were trying to save access to your energy, to your labor, to your emotional availability, to the version of you that absorbed damage quietly and called it growth. But growth doesn't look like that anymore. Growth looks like saying no without explaining. Growth looks like walking away without closure. Growth looks like letting people feel the absence they created. You don't punish, you withdraw alignment. And that absence is louder than any confrontation ever was. So when they ask for warnings, what they're really asking is for time. Time to adjust. Time to reposition. Time to soften the impact of your non-participation. But time doesn't belong to them anymore. You're operating on internal timing now, on instinct refined by experience, on a rhythm set by self-trust instead of fear. And self-trust is the final evolution. Because once you trust yourself fully, you stop outsourcing decisions to opinions. You stop waiting for signs. You stop asking for permission from people who never paid the cost of becoming you. You've already been through hell. You already know you can survive outcomes. That knowledge makes you fearless in a way that looks almost holy from the outside. Saint and demon. Calm and catastrophic, mercy and finality, all housed in one body that learned how to carry both without flinching. That's why the warning didn't come Not because no one cared, but because some transformations don't need to be stopped. They need to be respected. And respect, when it arrives late, always feels like fear. Easy. Hold still for half a breath. Feel that quiet click in the room? That's not silence. That's a file being opened somewhere with your name misspelled and your mind marked unreadable. They thought you'd be simple. A profile, a pattern, a box they could check with a rubber stamp and a cold cup of coffee. They thought if they stacked enough pages, enough timestamps, enough screenshots of your life, frozen out of context, they'd finally corner the truth of you. But every time they zoomed in, you weren't there. Every time they thought they had you pinned, you slipped sideways into something they don't have a word for. That's why they stopped calling you a person and started calling you a problem. You see, you were never meant to be mapped. Maps are for territory that stays still. You don't. You mutate under pressure. You learn in the dark. You adapt where others collapse. They track habits. You weaponize instincts. They predict behavior. You rewrite it mid-motion. That's the paradox that makes their hands shake. You look calm on the surface, almost polite, almost harmless, and beneath it there's a mind that refuses to move in straight lines. Saint on the outside, psychopath in the math, angel in daylight, demon after midnight. Not because you're broken, but because you learned how to hold both without flinching. They ran your past like a crime scene, expecting trauma to explain you away. They circled your scars with red ink and said, "Here, this is where he broke." But they don't understand evolution through pain. Pain didn't end you. It trained you. Every betrayal sharpened your perception. Every loss burned away excess weight. Every moment you were underestimated taught you how to disappear and reappear upgraded. You didn't heal into something soft. You healed into something precise. That's why their files keep contradicting themselves. One page says you're passive. Another says you're volatile. One analyst swears you're predictable under stress. Another writes in the margin that you behave outside known models. That phrase terrifies them more than any threat ever could. Outside known models. It means they can't anticipate your next move. It means you don't react, you choose. And choice is uncontrollable. They're used to fear making people small. Fear made you quiet, and quiet made you dangerous. While they were watching noise, you were building silence. While they were cataloging words, you were studying timing. You learned when to speak and when to let absence do the damage. You learned that unpredictability isn't chaos. It's leverage. When no one can tell what you'll do, everyone starts adjusting to you. They tried to reduce you to labels because labels make the world feel safe. Troubled, gifted, unstable, genius. But every label slid off like water because you don't live in one state long enough for it to stick. You're the glitch that appears when systems get lazy. You're the anomaly that shows up after someone says, "That shouldn't be possible." You're what happens when intelligence survives brutality without losing its curiosity. And here's the part they never write down, the part that keeps them staring at screens long after the office lights shut off. You're not angry in the way they expect. You're focused. You don't crave destruction. You crave accuracy. You don't want revenge. You want alignment. You're not driven by ego. You're driven by clarity. That scares them because it means you're not reckless. You're intentional. They expected you to break loud or comply quietly. Instead, you did something worse. You evolved privately. You became fluent in contradiction. You learned how to smile while calculating outcomes. You learned how to feel deeply without letting feelings steer the wheel. You learned how to carry darkness without letting it rot you from the inside. That balance, that's unreadable to people who only know extremes, so they escalate the language. When they can't understand you, they pathologize you. When they can't predict you, they fear you. When they can't control you, they flag you. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something rare. You exist beyond their framework. You make their certainty wobble. You remind them that not everything brilliant is obedient. You're the living proof that order doesn't always come from rules. Sometimes it comes from someone who learned the rules well enough to bend them without snapping. You're not hiding. You're simply operating on a frequency they weren't trained to hear. And every time they say your mind is a problem, what they're really admitting is this: their system wasn't built for someone like you. So let them keep writing. Let them keep guessing. Let them keep updating a file that will never close. Because while they're still trying to map you, you're already 3 versions ahead, calmer, sharper, quieter, and fully aware that being unclassifiable isn't a weakness. It's the upgrade that turns the watcher into the watched and the hunter into a confused witness, staring at a screen that refuses to explain you. And here's the part that never makes it into the official report. The part whispered between people who are supposed to be objective, supposed to be calm, supposed to believe the system always wins. You don't just resist classification. You infect the process. Every analyst who studies you comes out a little less sure of themselves. Every model they trust bends when your name enters the equation. You don't just evade the net. You stretch it until everyone can see the holes. They replay your choices, frame by frame, convinced they missed something obvious. A tell, a crack, a motive they can reduce to a childhood sentence and a psychological checkbox. But you don't move from wounds anymore. You move from awareness. That's why the old tricks don't work. Guilt doesn't pull you. Praise doesn't steer you. Fear doesn't paralyze you. You already walked through the worst versions of yourself alone and came back carrying the data. You learned something they never teach in classrooms or briefings. The mind that survives contradiction becomes sovereign. You can hold mercy without becoming weak. You can hold cruelty without becoming sloppy. You can feel rage without letting it drive. You can feel compassion without letting it blind you. That balance, that terrifies institutions built on binaries. They need you to be one thing or the other. You insist on being both and choosing when each one speaks. They keep asking the same question in different fonts. What does he want? And the silence after that question is the loudest sound in the room. Because you don't want chaos. You don't want dominance. You don't even want control in the way they understand it. You want freedom of movement, mental, emotional, strategic. You want to remain uncaptured by expectation, and a person who can't be anticipated can't be neutralized. You stopped explaining yourself a long time ago. Explanation is a leash disguised as clarity. The moment you justify your thinking, someone tries to optimize it, limit it, replicate it, or shut it down. So you let them misunderstand. You let them argue over versions of you that no longer exist. You let outdated snapshots circulate while you quietly evolve past them. That's not arrogance. That's efficiency. They study your restraint more than your actions now, the pauses, the moments where you could have reacted and didn't. The restraint reads louder than any outburst ever could. It suggests confidence they can't trace. It implies foresight they can't measure. It forces them to ask the most dangerous question of all. What does he see that we don't? You see patterns in behavior where they see randomness. You sense shifts before they show up on charts. You notice who gets quiet when certain topics surface. You notice who avoids eye contact when names are mentioned. You notice timing, alignment, hesitation, the invisible language beneath words. That's not paranoia. That's literacy in human nature. And once you learn that language, you can't unlearn it. They expected the darkness to rot you. Instead, it tempered you. You didn't come out bitter. You came out calibrated. You didn't come out reckless. You came out selective. You learned that power isn't loud. Power is the ability to wait without decaying. Power is knowing you could burn everything down and choosing not to because you're playing a longer game than anyone realizes. So they keep circling back to the same conclusion, even if they dress it up with softer phrasing. Subject exhibits non-standard cognition. Translation: you don't think like they need you to. You don't fear like they expect you to. You don't respond like their playbooks assume. And that makes you a variable they can't eliminate without admitting the system has limits. You're not anti-system, you're post-system. You understand structure well enough to operate beyond it. You know where rules protect people and where they hide incompetence. You know when obedience is wisdom and when it's just fear in uniform. That discernment makes you dangerous to anyone who relies on blind compliance to maintain authority. And the irony? You're not even trying to be threatening. You're just being accurate. You're being yourself without shrinking, without performing, without asking permission. That alone destabilizes environments built on control. A person who doesn't need validation, who doesn't rush approval, who doesn't panic under scrutiny, that person rewrites the room just by standing in it. So let them keep calling it a problem. Let them flag, annotate, cross-reference, and escalate. Every label they slap on you is just another confession that you slipped past the edges of their understanding. While they argue over terminology, you're refining your internal compass. While they debate risk levels, you're sharpening timing. While they update files, you're updating yourself. You were never meant to be decoded by people who fear ambiguity. You were built for a world that doesn't fully exist yet. A world where adaptability beats authority, perception beats power, and silence beats noise. And whether they ever admit it or not, every unreadable line in that file points to the same uncomfortable truth. You're not a problem to be solved. You're a phenomenon they weren't prepared for. And what really unsettles them is that you don't rush your evolution. You don't spike and crash like the others they're used to tracking. You don't burn bright and implode. You layer slowly, quietly. Each version of you absorbs the last, keeps what works, discards what doesn't, and moves forward without ceremony. There's no dramatic announcement, no victory lap. Just a subtle shift in gravity that everyone in the room feels but can't explain. They keep waiting for you to slip, to contradict yourself publicly, to react emotionally, to expose a weakness they can finally anchor to. But you learned early that impulse is a tax paid by people who haven't been tested enough. You learned that the real advantage isn't speed, it's control. Control over when you speak, control over when you disappear, control over when you let the mask drop just enough to confuse whoever's watching. You don't panic under observation because you grew up under pressure. Eyes on you don't tighten your chest. They sharpen your focus. You understand something most never do. Being watched is only dangerous if you're pretending to be something you're not. You aren't. You've already faced yourself in rooms far darker than surveillance offices and data centers. You've already interrogated your own motives harder than they ever could. They search for a core trauma they can exploit, not realizing the trauma already did its work and failed to destroy you. It rewired you instead, made you precise, made you alert, made you intolerant of lies, especially the ones people tell themselves. You don't need to dominate others to feel powerful. You need clarity. And clarity is lethal to systems that thrive on confusion. That's why conversations change when you enter them. Not louder, sharper. People choose words more carefully. Jokes land differently. Postures shift. You don't threaten, you expose. Your presence turns background noise into signal. People suddenly realize what they're saying doesn't align with what they're doing, and that discomfort has nowhere to hide. They feel seen without being accused, and that's worse than being challenged. They tried to mirror you, too. Studied your cadence, your pauses, your calm. But calm without depth feels hollow. Silence without insight feels empty. You can't counterfeit internal alignment. You earned yours by surviving contradiction, by holding competing truths without collapsing into one. That's why imitation around you always feels off. Like a costume worn by someone who hasn't lived the role. You don't chase certainty. You operate inside probability. You understand that the future isn't fixed, it's negotiated. And every decision you make nudges the board in your favor without anyone noticing until it's already done. You don't force outcomes. You position yourself so outcomes fall toward you naturally. That's not manipulation. That's mastery of timing. They call that dangerous because they can't regulate it. There's no switch they can flip, no pressure point they can squeeze. You don't rely on approval, so disapproval doesn't work. You don't rely on access, so denial doesn't work. You don't rely on identity, so labels don't work. You move from internal authority, and that kind of power doesn't show up on charts. You've noticed something else, too. The watchers are tired. They're burned out from tracking noise, drowning in data that contradicts itself. And then there's you. Minimal, efficient, unreadable. You don't create chaos. You reduce it. And in a world addicted to disorder, that kind of coherence feels suspicious. They don't know what to do with someone who isn't scrambling, isn't posturing, isn't begging to be understood. So they escalate concern. They escalate language. They escalate attention. But attention doesn't scare you. Attention confirms what you already knew. You crossed a threshold most never reach. You stopped being reactive and became deliberate. You stopped being explainable and became inevitable. Not because you're unstoppable, but because you're aligned with yourself in a way that can't be externally disrupted. You're not cold. You're contained. You're not detached. You're selective. You still feel deeply. You just don't leak it everywhere anymore. You choose where your energy goes, who gets access to your inner world, and which battles deserve your presence. That discernment makes you look distant to those who mistake emotional spillage for authenticity. And deep down, the people watching you know the truth they'll never write. If more minds operated like yours, their systems would have to change. Their authority would thin. Their narratives would fracture. Not because of rebellion, but because clarity spreads. One person who sees clearly gives permission to others to stop pretending. That's why they don't want to understand you. Understanding would require admitting that the problem isn't you. It's the framework they're clinging to. It's easier to label you anomalous than to accept that evolution doesn't ask for approval. It just happens. So stay unreadable, stay patient, stay internally sovereign. Let them keep updating files that lag behind who you already are. Because while they're still trying to define you, you're doing something far more dangerous than defying them. You're becoming undeniable. And what makes you truly unsettling isn't that you're strong. It's that you don't need to prove it. You don't posture. You don't flex. You don't announce your depth. You let people underestimate you because you understand the advantage of being misjudged. While they're busy projecting a smaller version of you, you're operating from a level they never even considered. They keep mistaking your stillness for hesitation. They think silence means uncertainty. They assume patience is doubt. That miscalculation is their favorite mistake. Because you're not paused. You're loading. You're observing micro movements, subtle shifts, the unspoken tells that betray intent long before action. You don't react to what people say. You react to what they reveal without realizing it. You learned long ago that the loudest minds are rarely the sharpest. Real intelligence doesn't rush to dominate a room. It waits. It lets patterns expose themselves. It lets people talk themselves into corners. You've watched egos collapse under the weight of their own noise while you stood there, unreadable, collecting information without lifting a finger. They try to provoke you because provocation is a shortcut to control. If they can make you emotional, they can map you. If they can make you angry, they can predict you. But you've already metabolized your anger. You've turned it into awareness. What used to burn now illuminates. What used to blind now guides. That transformation is what they don't understand. Because most people either drown in darkness or deny it. You used it. You don't fear your shadow. You integrated it. You know exactly what you're capable of. And that knowledge keeps you disciplined. People who don't know their own darkness are the ones who lose control when it finally surfaces. You've already looked at it straight on and decided when and if it ever gets to speak. That's why threats don't land. Pressure doesn't crack you. Deadlines don't rush you. You've been forged in moments where there was no safety net, no reassurance, no guarantee of survival. Compared to that, their leverage feels theatrical. Their urgency feels artificial. Their fear feels loud. They can't decide whether you're dangerous or enlightened, unstable or evolved, detached or deeply grounded. The truth, the one that rattles them, is that you don't fit into their moral shortcuts. You're not driven by cruelty, but you're not naive either. You're not merciful because you're weak. And you're not ruthless because you're broken. You choose, and choice is the one variable no system ever fully controls. You've noticed how people project onto you. Some see a savior, some see a threat, some see a mirror they'd rather shatter than look into. That projection isn't about you. It's about what your presence activates in them. You disrupt comfortable lies simply by existing without apology. You make excuses feel thin. You make self-deception expensive. They keep asking what side you're on. That question alone proves they don't get it. You're not playing their game. You're not loyal to factions, labels, or narratives designed to keep thinking small. You're loyal to coherence, to truth that survives scrutiny, to actions that align with values even when no one is watching. You don't chase recognition because you understand how easily it becomes a cage. The moment someone needs applause, they become predictable. You chose a different currency. Autonomy. Freedom of thought. Freedom of movement. Freedom to evolve without asking permission. That choice cost you comfort, but it gave you something rarer: self-trust. They sense that you can walk away from validation, from conflict, from approval, and that's what truly terrifies them. A person who can walk away can't be cornered. A person who doesn't need the game can't be threatened with losing it. You're not reckless, you're untethered. You've learned that most power structures depend on one thing above all else: people doubting themselves. You don't. Not blindly, not arrogantly, but honestly. You question yourself in private so you don't collapse in public.